How is everybody doing out there? Hope everyone's having a good Thursday morning. This is the Going Broadway podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. I am Alex. Cole is here. Cole, what's going on?
Man, what a rough week.
It was an interesting day yesterday, and really a week in general, and not just with the releases, which we'll get to, but it was not exactly a bright week in the world of wrestling in terms of just in-ring action and options, in my opinion. I mean, I felt like last night was rather lackluster on both fronts, AEW and NXT. I mean, there were some bright spots, but we'll get into that. Yeah, like we said, there were a lot of releases yesterday, which we'll get into. We might talk last night's action. We might talk about the Dark Side of the Ring. Actually, we will probably.
We should get to
we'll get to that, and even if that means we don't recap last night, that's totally fine with me. But on that note, let's get right to it. We'll talk about the releases here in just a second. I did want to mention a couple quick things. I mentioned on our social media platforms that we will be discussing more details about our belt giveaway. That will be later in the show, so stay tuned. Hang out with us for a while, and we'll cover that later in the show. Some quick blurbs, I guess I'll call it. Maybe I'll call this the blurb segment that we open up our show with every morning. We mentioned that there were a bunch of releases, which we'll get to those in a second. I wanted to mention that, so we saw earlier in the week that wrestling has now been deemed an essential business in the state of Florida, hence the reason that WWE is able to air live events. But that does not apply just to WWE. So if AEW wants to go back to recording live shows, they're able to do so. Obviously, they have their Daily's Place venue in Jacksonville. I'm not sure, and you guys that are watching us can let us know your opinions, what you think. Like we've mentioned before, we're pretty good about reading comments, but I don't know if AEW is even I don't know if they're going to go the route of having live events for the time being. I mean, they've got a bunch of episodes in the can, so to speak, and Tony Khan has been very open about, hey, if any of our talents live in these coronavirus hotbeds, so California, New York, they want those talents to stay there. They're actually saying, we don't want you to come here. So I don't see them having live events without their full crew. Your thoughts?
No need to. When they've recorded as much as they have, I mean, they're recorded all the way to like mid-May.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're recorded that far ahead, why not coast for a little bit? One, AEW prides itself on being a more relaxed as far as schedule kind of thing. This is a perfect opportunity for some of those guys who have been doing the weekly episodic thing to kind of pull back the reins just a little bit, get a little bit of refocus, a little relaxation, just chill out. And you've noticed a lot of those guys have, like Santana and Ortiz, haven't really been on air. They might have shot a promo, which doesn't take much to do on your phone with the way they've been shooting them.
Exactly. And that's the first time we've seen them in a while on TV, period.
Right. And Young Bucks haven't really been on much. Page, there's a lot of these guys who haven't really been on air a whole lot. There's a key group that I think either live there in the area, live locally, or just kind of signed on to do a lot more of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of more available, but I just don't think there's any need to. Not to mention, there is a lot of backlash coming towards WWE for going back to doing live shows, for not really practicing social distancing while on air. Not that AEW is either. I'm pretty sure Kip Sabian mouthed his girlfriend on air last night. So, even though they're dating, like I'm just saying, like I don't know if I would have been airing that on TV. So,
good point.
It's just one of those things where this would be a point for AEW, especially when they had Chris Jericho do the whole, wash your hands, kind of gimmick as well to kind of push being safe during this time. I just think they should err on the side of being what's the word, resourceful during this time, do what's being asked and kind of show that they're the company that's abiding by the guidelines a little bit more.
Agreed. They do need to be careful about what they're doing. I mean, the observation I made on last night's Dynamite was, I get it. I get that it's the back of the hand, but Orange Cassidy was still doing, kind of like his version of the high five, but he was using the back of his hand. I get that it's the back of the hand, but it's still the hand, and so I think they're treading on, I don't want to say they're treading on thin ice, because I think they're not quite there, but they do need to be careful, especially being a startup company. And we've obviously seen what happens to startup companies, regardless of whether or not they're backed by millions and millions of dollars. Hence the fact that the XFL is no more. Did we talk about that on last week or on
just
Monday's show?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think what people realize is that it's not that they're just not a thing anymore. They filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah, so basically what that means is, if there is going to be an XFL anymore, which I don't think there is, because I don't see anyone touching this, but if there's going to be an XFL anymore, it's not going to be under the Alpha Entertainment, Vince McMahon umbrella. So it'll have nothing to do with them. Somebody would need to buy all of their assets and almost start from scratch. I mean, I don't know what would happen in terms of, let's say hypothetically someone buys it and they say, hey, we're gonna give this a third shot at the XFL. What prior XFL player is going to say, yes, I want to try this again? I mean, someone that wants to give pro football a shot and isn't working, but you're going to have a lot of guys that are just very iffy about joining an XFL team, regardless of the pay, and they're not going to pay XFL players that much, period. You're going to have a lot of guys that are very iffy about doing that, just because it would be a third try at the XFL, and I don't see it happening. So I want to read some comments real quick. We haven't got there yet. Sean, Thomas, Trevor, good morning. Mary, it was a crazy day yesterday. William, good morning. Alan, thanks for tuning in. Sean, if this is your belt, that's news to me, because we haven't done the drawing yet, buddy.
I like it though. I like the confidence.
I do too. Yeah, Trevor, I agree. I'm praying that this doesn't last very long. Alan, yeah, there was a lot of cuts. We'll get there. Yeah, Trevor, I agree. Stay home, stay safe. If that's something that you're able to do, and if you're able to work from home and actually make a living wage, still do that. I mean, I have to come in twice a week, which is also why we're able to do this podcast twice a week. But I work in finance and accounting as well, in addition to this, and so I have to be in twice a week. But if you're able to stay at home and you're not just living off the government, and you're able to work, like if you're physically able to work, and I'm not going to get too political here, but if you're able to work from home, do it. So let's see what else we got here. Alan, let it take its course. No need to hurry up to a live audience. Yeah, I agree. I want it to run its course, but at the same time, we can't keep the economy shut down forever. I mean, there needs to be a point where, either from a business standpoint, that sports and just the American workplace in general needs to reopen, or we're going to be worse off as a country. And I mean, globally, quite frankly, I mean, we can't keep the economy nationally and globally shut down forever. I mean, I get that people are dying from the coronavirus, but anyway, I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but I'm open to discussing that more with anybody privately. Richard, last night's show, we might get there. Like I said, I don't know if we'll get to the recaps or not today, because I really want to talk about the releases and Dark Side of the Ring, and we'll see where we're at depending on time. As far as Vince being in charge of opening back up the economy, so Donald Trump, our president, has talked with pretty much any high-ranking executive, president, whatever you want to call it, in any sports avenue, sports world. I mean, everything from the big four sports: football, basketball, baseball, hockey. He's talked to people with NASCAR, PGA, LPGA, WWE, so Vince McMahon's included. I don't know that those talks are going to be productive, at least anytime soon, but we'll see. Conrad, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you like what you see. So yeah. All right, let's talk about something else real quick here. So if you watched NXT last night, you probably noticed that it was Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong instead of Kyle O'Reilly that was in the tag match. So there were rumors going around last night, and I found this to be interesting, that Kyle O'Reilly might have been the guy to be the mystery tag partner for Matt Riddle and set up a swerve and a face turn for Kyle O'Reilly. And I found that to be kind of an interesting rumor, and I don't know. I kind of would have been okay with that, but I'll get to that in a second. But the reason he wasn't there last night, from what I'm seeing, is because he's diabetic. He's not medically cleared with this coronavirus stuff, so we might not see him for quite a while. Now, we like to kind of play Booker on this show sometimes. So what would you think of a Kyle O'Reilly face turn?
It would have been just a little out of place, in my opinion, just because there was no storyline set up for that. There was nothing that indicated, Kyle O'Reilly being frustrated with Undisputed Era. There was no indication. They're really close as friends. They've grown up on the indies. There was no, conversation between him and Matt or him and Pete. There was just nothing that really built to that. So the only thing that I would have had a problem with is the lack of setup for it. If it just would have randomly been like, oh yeah, I'm his partner and I'm no longer part of Undisputed, it just would have been like, okay. It would have had no rhyme or reason to it. So I'm glad that he couldn't, if that was the official go-to idea, I'm glad he wasn't able to be there, because I think that would have been a poorly booked thing. I'm not against him having a face run, a singles run. I think he's very talented, but I think the storyline has to be there for it to make sense.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And my thought going into last night's NXT, which, by the way, I'll be honest, I watched AEW, but I did not watch NXT. And for the second week in a row, I kind of regret it. But like I said, we might get there later in the show. If they were to do that, like Cole said, it would have had to have been done right. And to this point, there was no indication that Kyle O'Reilly, from a storyline standpoint, was unhappy with Undisputed Era. So, yeah, at this point, I don't think there was any way for it to make sense. But long term, I'd be okay with Kyle O'Reilly to have a face run, because he seems like the most likely, if they're going to go that route in the Undisputed Era. He's like the one that seems to make the most sense to do that, because Roderick Strong has already had a face run prior to joining Undisputed Era. Bobby Fish doesn't really fit the profile of being a face. I don't even know if he's been a face at any point in his career. I didn't really follow him too much in Ring of Honor, but I know that Kyle O'Reilly was a face at one point. So I found that to be kind of interesting. So also with the cuts that happened, and we'll get to the list here in a second, I found this statistic to be kind of interesting. I would have thought that to this point, WWE would have saved more money. But it looks like, from what I'm reading, just based on the cuts that have been made so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if the cuts go into the hundreds.
They're predicting at least 100.
When you factor in not just talent, but
employees in general.
Employees in general, behind the scenes staff, producers, off screen talent. But the cuts that were made on Wednesday to this point will only save WWE about $700,000 per month. I would have thought that would have been in the millions. So I was quite shocked with that statistic, if that's assumed to be true. WWE also noted on Wednesday that the move to their new headquarters has been delayed for at least 6 months. So I don't know if the 700,000 number of what they're saving per month with the cuts, I'm assuming that's just cuts. I don't know if that includes
That does not include that stuff.
I didn't think it would, but this what this article I'm reading isn't very specific. So there's that. I wanted to bring up this only because I don't like Baron Corbin, but any chance I get to talk about him, I'm going to. So Baron Corbin reacted to a fan on Twitter yesterday. So the fan wrote, "Why did they keep Baron Corbin? Got rid of lots of talent and kept him, bunch of trash." Corbin replied, "People like this truly make me sick. Regardless of your thoughts on me, you're wishing someone lost their job, how they feed their families and their livelihood. You need to reevaluate your life." This is one of the few times I agree with Baron Corbin, because inevitably people are losing their jobs, and just because someone makes, in the 6 or 7 figure range, they probably live on a big bulk of that 6 or 7 figure range because they're able to.
Not to mention, these wrestlers don't get everything handed to them either. The money that they're paid, they also have to pay for their own flights, their own car rentals, their own hotels, their own not everybody has it to where travel and all that stuff's built into their contracts. A lot of the lower end talents, which are the ones that you are seeing get cut, are usually guys who are getting, as you can see, not much money. When you take $700,000 and you divide it by 18 people, that doesn't break down to a whole lot of money. And then you have to factor in that they're traveling each and every week. Some of them were sitting at home at this point. If you look at the people there, some of them were enhancement talents. Kurt Hawkins, Zack Ryder, those guys were on the set every single week, which means they were traveling each and every week to a show that they weren't performing on. They were paying for their own hotel, their own car rental, their own food, whatever, because WWE doesn't cover that for the small guy.
Right. And to your point, the $700,000 that they're saving per month, I don't think that was just talent. I think that was all the cuts they've made to this point. So you said 18. I think the number is actually up to 30, somewhere between 30 and 35, possibly more. But again, that includes wrestlers, that includes producers, announcers, referees, coaches, writers, creative, everyone across the board. So really,
I don't feel like Revival's included in that because they got released before these releases. Yeah. So I don't think they fall into that because their deal was pretty big.
Yeah, I don't think they are included in that. So while we're talking about it, let's just run down the list of this is as of this morning, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to refresh my page here because this the list I have here, and I'm wearing a Jericho shirt, so no pun intended. The list. But this as of this morning is the most updated list of confirmed cuts that were made. So we have, and a lot of these names I recognize, but some of them I don't. So we have Alyssa Marino, Dan Matha, MJ Jenkins, Deonna Purrazzo, Alexander Jaksic, and then we have Rusev, No Way Jose, Mike and Maria Kanellis, Primo and Epico, Rowan, Sarah Logan, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, EC3, Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Zack Ryder, Heath Slater, Eric Young, Leo Rush. And then producers, we have Kurt Angle, Billy Kidman, Mike Rotunda, Pat Buck, Fit Finley, Sean Devari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock, Shane Helms, Lance Storm. Coaches, Serena Deeb. And by the way, if you remember Serena Deeb, she was with the CM Punk angle from a few years ago,
Straight Edge Society.
Straight Edge Society. Thank you. Kendo Kashin, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Chris Guy, also known as Ace Steel. Then we have Aiden English, Jerry Soto, Mike Chioda, Andrea Listenberg, Josiah Williams, John Questo. So let's say is that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is actually a longer list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
They've added more since then.
41. So right now, as of this morning, 41 released and growing. I'm gonna read some comments again real quick.
You're gonna love one. I wanted to read it, but I didn't want to cut you off.
So Conrad says, "Love the content. Love that big gold belt. Yeah, appreciate it." Dusty says Florida's governor became part of a $26.6 million super PAC the same time he's deemed WWE essential. WWE has $33 million a month with its live TV and contracts with SmackDown and USA. His relationship with Trump and DeSantis shows he will do anything to make a buck compared to protecting people's health or saving lives. No argument from me. Julio, appreciate it. Trevor, it would have worked better, in my opinion, if he was challenging Riddle for the title, not defending it. Agreed. Let's see. Mark says an O'Reilly face turn wouldn't make no sense right now. 100% agreed. Right now, it would not. William makes a great point, and this is another reason why I think some more are coming. Most cuts were Raw wrestlers. We may get more cuts from SmackDown and NXT. Sean says some things you should keep to yourself. Disrespectful. I'm not sure what that's referring to.
The Baron Corbin, the fan.
Oh, yeah. 100% agreed. Conrad says, is this the one?
Yeah.
Baron Corbin is a phenomenal worker. That fan is a terrible person for wishing for someone to lose their job. But furthermore, Corbin is a great talent. I'll get to that in a second. Sean says, gotta rock Canadian guys. Mark says, I read somewhere that they would save $4 million per month with the cuts. I could definitely be wrong about that, though. Yeah, that came from Dave Meltzer initially, and I don't know.
That number is going to change too.
Agreed.
The more that they release people, the more details that come out. There's been false accusations of people who were released that actually aren't released. We were just talking about this morning. I had read on 2 different websites yesterday that Lana was released, and she wasn't. Rusev was, but she wasn't.
Yep.
She probably will be. They're writing her off TV. But that's kind of where I'm like, you got to make sure you're reading accurate lists, make sure that they've actually been confirmed. But that amount of money that they're going to save is going to completely keep changing. And by nowhere are we saying that 700,000 includes all 41 of those, because that list has changed since we read it last night. So
yeah, everything's very fluid at this point. So anytime someone said, they might be saving X amount of dollars, that could be not including an updated list of who's been released. So I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they're saving closer to $2 million per month once the cuts are over. $4 million, I think, is extreme. But
at this point, yes. With the talents that have been released, a lot of those guys were not making near the amount of money that people think they're making.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever reported that is probably assuming that those guys had max deals, and a lot of them didn't.
I'd say maybe 2 or 3 on that list had max deals.
Maybe Luke Gallows and
OC
Carl
and
Anderson, because of the
OC and
rules.
Rusev might have been it. I don't even know if Rusev did.
Rusev was like up on his contract. It wasn't necessarily that he got released, more like he didn't re-sign. I mean, he pretty much was at the end of his deal anyways, which is why they just released him versus saying he left.
Thomas says, I think some of these will end up being furloughs and will be rehired when all this is over. Yeah, I think that's the goal with at least the producers, except for Kurt Angle, which I found surprising. I read that Kurt Angle was the only one of that group that is a permanent release. James, good morning. Jim, good morning. Dusty says, Corbin's okay with me being a Chiefs fan. All right, so I want to address Conrad's comment real quick. So Baron Corbin is, I would say, in my opinion, he's decent on the mic. He's gotten better. I just think in the ring, while he's improved, I don't think he is a main event level talent that WWE has pushed him to be. And I'm just surprised at his lack of improvement since he's come to WWE, because anytime someone joins WWE, especially from NXT, so if someone joins Raw or SmackDown coming from NXT, they usually tend to improve even more once they've jumped to WWE, once they've made that jump. He has not really improved, in my opinion. I think he was the wrong person to retire Kurt Angle. I don't think Kurt Angle should have taken that loss at WrestleMania. I digress, though. So Dusty says Gallows and Anderson had recently signed a 5-year extension.
Yeah, that's true, and I just commented back to you.
I see that. Yep.
Yeah, they signed it, especially because they were playing a pretty prominent role as part of the OC and helping build AJ. Nothing that they were really doing was for them. Even when they got like the tournament win or they got the tag belt, stuff like that, it always went back to building the OC, which was essentially building AJ Styles. And I think I mentioned this on Monday. If not, I had definitely mentioned it to Alex. About how I think AJ Styles is about to get another major push again.
They're going to turn him face.
He's going to go face. He's going to be off TV for probably a couple weeks, if not more, with the whole Boneyard match. They usually keep the person that got buried off TV for a couple of weeks, to make the whole match seem real or whatever. But I would definitely see AJ taking a face turn, which means he doesn't need the Good Brothers for that. And there was really nothing for them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward.
Hold on, guys. I want to read William's comment because this is breaking news to me. He says, just found out that Howard Finkel just passed this morning. I did not know that. Was that yeah, I mean, I guess that's been fairly recent because I usually read quite a bit of stuff, the night before and especially the morning of whenever we do our shows. So yeah, that's news to me. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Howard Finkel was like the voice of my childhood. Just announcing all the matches. So I don't know. I'm kind of caught off guard with that one. William, I appreciate you giving us the heads up on that, but thoughts and prayers out to his family. Yeah, I agree. That's really sad, Steven. Wow, that's kind of that really puts things in perspective, especially, it's one thing for people to be losing their jobs, but, someone passing away, that just, yeah, that sucks. I want to get some other comments. So I wanted to address this one. Sean says, AEW going to get some good talent or other shows. I don't think that they're going to get a whole lot of these guys because they're in the same boat financially. I mean, yeah, they're having taped shows, but they might bring on Rusev.
Revival's obviously going.
Revival, but Cole and I talked about this. I don't think Gallows and Anderson are going to go to AEW. Mm-mm. I think they're going to go back to New Japan. Here's why. The AEW tag picture is already stacked. If you add them to that picture, yeah, it gets even more stacked. But I think that they would just be, at this point, if AEW adds more tag teams, they're going to, it's just too much for them to have at this point. And the fact that they only have a 2-hour show on Wednesday night and then the AEW Dark, I think it's only an hour on YouTube on Tuesday nights. That's it. They don't have enough time to be, they already have a pretty good talent pool. And so if they add anybody else, especially if they're a tag team, that's just, you would see them probably like once a month. If they go to New Japan, yeah, they might be paid less, but a lot of these American wrestlers that go to New Japan, they have what's called sponsors. And so that basically means that they don't have to pay for anything ever. The sponsors pay for it from their food, lodging. I've read that even some, whenever Kenny and the Bucks would be over there, they wouldn't even have to pay. I'll backtrack. They would have an allowance for just like miscellaneous spending, things like that. So, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'd be more surprised if they went to AEW as opposed to going back to New Japan.
Just to expound on it just a little bit more too, you got to understand they don't really fit AEW's mold either. The tag teams that are there are very, very good, and I'm not saying that the Good Brothers aren't, but the Good Brothers are just a little bit older. Their style is a little bit more traditional. AEW's tag division is a little bit more aerial, and I don't think Gallows and Anderson are anywhere near that. Revival is going to have to adjust a little bit to that as well, but I think that they're in a place to do that where I don't think Gallows and Anderson are. Gallows and Anderson need to go to a place that they can get over instantly. I don't think AEW is that place for them. I think with how many talents that are there, the only thing that would get them over is the fact that they were known. And they're known in New Japan already. They can go right into New Japan, jump right into the title picture. Their merch sales will skyrocket through the roof again because they've been in a promotion where they're trying to get over the Bullet Club, even though they killed it when they moved it to WWE. So it's one of those things where, like, them specifically, I don't see them anywhere else but New Japan. I could be wrong, but my track record here recently has been pretty on point.
And the thing is, with New Japan, that opens up other doors as well because they have a partnership with Ring of Honor, so that you could see them on Ring of Honor shows, and you
could see appearances on AEW still. They've done one-off appearances,
but at this point, they're one-off appearances on AEW. So they've had guys like Jeff Cobb do a one-off appearance. Jeff Cobb isn't really a household name. If you have a household name at this point, and I'll call them household names because they've been in WWE. Anybody that's in WWE, even if it's a Zack Ryder, they're a household name because they've been in WWE. If you have guys that make the one-off appearance in AEW, people are going to wonder, what's the reason for it? Jeff Cobb, okay, not a big deal, but it wouldn't make sense for me unless there turns out to be a better working relationship or even a talent exchange like we've talked about in the past between AEW and New Japan, maybe throwing Ring of Honor in there. It wouldn't make sense to me for them to do a one-off with AEW, and it makes even more sense for them to go to New Japan. So
the only thing I could see, and someone mentioned it, would just be for the Bullet Club reunion aspect.
Bullet Club, New Japan has that trademark, so they can't use Bullet Club anywhere. I get what they're saying, the reunion of sorts, and people would get it, but
you can't call it the club.
No,
you call it. What do you even
there's
call
not
it?
really anything you could call it. They're not part of. They're not part of the
back together.
Yeah, they're not part of the elite. So, Brandon, Omega and Bucks were in Bullet Club, but I don't think that they fit AEW, and I could be wrong. But
someone said too slow, and I agree. They're just their style isn't up to the standards of what AEW is doing right now, especially when you have these teams who are up and coming who are getting over.
Right.
Jurassic Express, Best Friends, the Inner Circles teams that are in there, Death Triangle, like I could name so many more. The Nightmare Collective, like there's all these, or the Natural Nightmares, whatever you want to call them. They have all these teams that are starting to form, get built, get pushed together. The Dark Order, Butcher and the Blade, like they're the Private Party, the Young Bucks. There's just so many tag teams there that I would rather see wrestle in a prominent role than Gallows and Anderson in AEW.
And the Revival is going to fill that role, assuming they go to AEW, which I don't know why they wouldn't, but I've been surprised before. Revival or Shatter Machine or Top Guys, whatever their names might be, they're going to fill that role of being the ground and pound grappler style. They don't need multiple tag teams to do that. And so I want to read more comments real quick. I want to get to Mark's comment here in just a second. Let's see. Brandon says maybe they could become Club Square. I'm not sure, but Eugene says New Japan Pro was supposed to come to MSG this summer. Is that still on? I don't believe so. Trevor says Private Party, who I missed. Trevor, if you are a Private Party fan, you should watch the Being the Elite show on YouTube. It's normally on Mondays, but this week was actually a 3-part show. They're on episode 199. They had a part 1, 2, and 3 that went from Monday to yesterday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And Private Party, I think Private Party was in for maybe just one part, but regardless, they were on it. Mark says Japan was my first thought for Anderson and Gallows. Dusty says the advantage AEW does have is that the Khan family is the 4th richest in the U.S., and I agree they will be smart about who they add. If I were to guess, it would be Rusev, Ryder, Rowan, and perhaps Jeff Hardy if he's released, possibly EC3. I'll get to that in a second. Mark says Impact more likely to grab more of them if they can. And then Mark also says Revival, Rusev, and maybe EC3 to AEW. I don't see anyone else getting signed right now.
Oh,
so
Square Club. I get it. Inner Circle, Death Triangle. They could be the Square Club.
Yeah.
I get it.
So they will if Jeff Hardy is released, which I'd be shocked if they release him. He's got way too much time on his contract, and he's a given to go to AEW if he gets released.
Not to mention they have storylines already written and ready to go for him.
If and when Jeff Hardy is finished up with WWE, depending on when that might take place, I don't know how much time he's got on his contract. If he still feels like he can go in the ring and AEW pays him more money, he'll go to AEW. But depending on when his contract's up, he might finish his career in WWE. I don't know. Rowan, I don't know about him. Zack Ryder,
I want to just go down this list and kind of talk about that.
Well, I want to address these specific comments real quick. So Rusev, yes. Revival, yes. Zack Ryder, I don't know. I get that he's buddies with Cody, but I've never been sold on him in the ring. Him and Hawkins both.
He's a manager.
Maybe. Eric Rowan, same thing. He's never, I don't know. He's never had that it factor. I know that sounds cliche. EC3, I've never been a fan of his either. I get why people are. He's more. I almost see him more likely to go back to Impact than AEW signing him. I feel like AEW would be kind of on the fence about him, and anyone they're on the fence with, I think they're going to say no to.
There's very few names on this list that I am just like,
hey, Mark,
for sure going to AEW. There's more that I would be on the fence with now that I'm looking at it. The only name that really sticks out to me that I'm like for sure out of the ones who were just recently, like I said, Revival, I don't really count as part of this release frenzy because they were released, almost 2 weeks ago. So they're obviously headed that way though. The only name that's really on here that I'm like, yes, would be Rusev. Just because of the draw that he has.
Right. So let's just go down this list real quick, at least of names, quote unquote names, so to speak. So we talked about Rusev, No Way Jose.
No Way Jose, I see if he goes anywhere, he'll have to be repackaged because his gimmick is terrible. But I would see him going to Impact, if anywhere, or to like a lower end, part of ROH.
Yeah. Mike and Maria Kanellis.
They're going to go back to ROH.
So we talked about this already. Primo and Epico.
I think,
and I meant to say we talked about that before we went on.
So I was telling Alex they've been wrestling with permission from McMahon because they have a working relationship with the Colon family. They've been working in their father's promotion, which is a smaller promotion, Lucha Libre style, and Alex is pretty sure one of them was like one of the main champions actually, which. If I was them, I would just stick to that. Like, I don't see them really getting over in any company. Not that they're not talented. There's nothing really gimmick or storyline special with them that I could just see getting over very well. And I think because of how long they've sat on the shelf, that they're a little bit past their prime of getting back into doing something that's fresh and new. So I don't see them. If they sign somewhere, it won't be a prominent role.
Agreed.
Anywhere.
I'm going to skip down a little bit, at least with this list I have, because Mark makes an interesting point and a point that I forgot about. So Jericho and EC3 are good friends, apparently. That's why Mark thinks he might go to AEW. So EC3.
EC3, I am on the fence about him because I could see him fitting in a lot of companies. My go-to thing that I was sharing on our Facebook page yesterday was that a lot of talents tend to go back to what worked the first time, which is why I don't know if EC3 ends up in AEW, not because he doesn't want to go there, but he may just go back to where the money is. Impact will be wanting to sign some of these guys, and out of this list, I think they know they're not going to get Rusev, and I think they know that there's certain names that they won't get. I think EC3 is one that they're like, hey, we have a working relationship with you. The pop would be huge. We could make that happen. The only thing that I like about EC3 going to AEW is that I think he would be a really good fit for the TNT title picture. I do like the idea of him and MJF working together as heels as a tag team at some point because MJF's going to run out of steam in the singles picture at some point. So I do like some of the angles that are there in AEW. He does have a lot of relationships, and I do think he's a little bit bigger than Impact as far as what he can bring to the table. But I always go back to the idea that a lot of wrestlers go back to what works or what worked.
Agreed.
And so I just don't know if I see the Khan family spending money at this time on a guy like EC3. I could see maybe down the road if he goes independent for a little while, kind of regains some steam. The problem is that he probably lost his EC3 name.
Oh, 100%.
Which means he has to go back to being called Ethan Carter III, which is just a lot more of a mouthful. But so I don't know. It's one of those things that I would like to see him and Drake Maverick team back up and Drake Maverick manage him. Because I think Drake Maverick's a little lackluster as a wrestler and a little bit hard to believe.
Did you guys see Drake Maverick's Twitter post? Man, that broke my heart. That was rough.
So he obviously is in the Cruiserweight Classic or the tournament still thing. Obviously, that is a pretty clear indication that he's not going to win.
I think it's a clear indication that he's going to lose in the first round.
He did make a mention that these next 3 matches, so it's not like it's a point system tournament.
Oh, that's right. It's not a single elimination.
He's gonna have 3 matches that you'll see, but they're probably all pre-taped already. And if I had to venture, he's gonna lose. So my thoughts are that I wouldn't mind to see him be EC3's manager again. They kind of tested the waters on that,
which I was okay with
on Raw when the EC3 was getting his push. Now I read EC3 wasn't being held off completely due to just for no reason. He actually has a concussion. I don't know how he got it. He wasn't really doing much, but so I would like to see them together. But honestly, the one that strikes me as interesting with EC3 is I could see him in NWA.
That's a good point, and we've not mentioned NWA a whole lot with.
There's a few of these guys that I see in NWA.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just kind of rapid fire these real quick. So, real quick, we've had some comments on Rowan, so I want to read those real quick, and then we'll get to our thoughts and opinions. Brandon says Rowan would go good with Jake the Snake and Archer. William says Rowan would be a good fit for the Indies or Ring of Honor. And Alan says Rowan versus Brody Lee. Dusty just says Rowan did a match at a live event with Daniel Bryan in Springfield a few years back that was one of the best worked matches I've ever seen. AEW and his creative could utilize his work ethic and his actual high IQ and extensive talking ability to give him a character that fits him better than the type of persona WWE has kept him with all these years. Dusty, are you talking about Rowan or are you talking about Luke Harper? Or Brody Lee, I should say, because Brody Lee is the one that's like super intelligent in real life. He's got a good ring IQ.
So is Rowan.
If he does, that's fine.
Rowan has like a degree, like a college, like a very well off college degree.
So these two guys in real life are metalheads that are really smart.
Yes,
that's funny. Okay, so Rowan is one, and I'll go first on this. Rowan is one I'm on the fence about. I don't. Gosh, I don't know. Some of these guys are. It's tough to say that. So if I'm AEW management, it's hard to bring in Brody Lee and not bring in Rowan. But at this point, given the situation, if he comes to AEW, I think it'll be a while. Rowan is one that I think he sees himself as a talent that is like he's a name that people recognize. He has a face that people recognize. I wonder if he'll just do I don't want to say the indie thing because there are no indie shows right now, but just be a free agent for a while until this coronavirus stuff passes or until AEW starts having live events again, and then maybe sign with AEW if there's an offer there. But he's one I wouldn't be surprised if he has a stint in New Japan because he's got that kind of unique monster look that New Japan kind of like New Japan has a lot of characters, so to speak, and so I could see him in New Japan. I could see him going a lot of places. So unfortunately, I don't have a set answer on Rowan. He's one I'm more on the fence about than I am EC3. Which did I say? I think EC3 is going to go back to Impact, but Rowan I'm on the fence about.
So when it comes to Rowan, it really depends on which Rowan you're looking at. And this is where I hate to give them credit for doing this, but this is where WWE is smart, is that when they're done with somebody, they ruin them so that it's hard for other talents to then, or other organizations to then go and sign them and trying to make them legitimate. And so Rowan just got out of this stupid gimmick where he has this cage that's biting people's hands off and he's like in love with this cage and it's like a spider. Like it was weird as all get out and it just didn't make any sense and it really hurt, I think, Rowan.
Agreed.
As a character. Now, a lot of guys are able to bounce back from this, but Rowan is one that I would be concerned about being able to bounce back from that kind of lackluster booking. Now, with all that being said, if I'm looking at it, Rowan is talented. He's a big guy. We haven't heard a whole lot of his mic skills, but from what I heard, he's intelligent. He can, especially when he was kind of doing the promos with Roman Reigns for a little while, like I thought, hey, this guy's decent. As far as where he goes, if you go to AEW, you can't put him back with Brody Lee, because Brody Lee is the face of that Dark Order right now. And the problem with that is that Rowan would have to come in and be underneath him. And I don't think it works like that. I think for them to reunite, it would have to be on a term where they are equals and they were doing like a Bludgeon Brothers kind of, not necessarily that gimmick, but where they're just a wrecking crew that comes in and destroys people.
Right.
I don't think he can come into Dark Order and be like underneath Brody Lee, because that to me diminishes Rowan a little bit.
Agreed. And you can't bring him in and have them be equals. Like, it's just not as much as you've built up this higher, whatever they called it, Exalted One.
I could see him coming in and being one of the people that helps take down the Dark Order.
True.
Because they've worked so well together in the past, both with each other and against each other. But that would be something that they wouldn't want to bring Rowan in now. They're going to let this Dark Order thing kind of get over a little bit. You might see Brody Lee get a TNT or even maybe a AEW championship title shot or storyline at some point as they build this.
Could you see Rowan, maybe, like if AEW brought Rowan in, could you see Rowan as kind of like I don't want to say bodyguard because he doesn't need it, but more of just like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even want to say manager, because I thought maybe like a right-hand man for Moxley.
Like a Wardlow?
Not, well,
in a sense, like somebody who's just kind of...
Because I look at Wardlow as a bodyguard, but like a right-hand man for Moxley.
I don't think Moxley's going to...
He doesn't need it,
he wants it. I think he's very big on me. I don't need a bodyguard. Like, I don't think it would fit his gimmick. Not to say that they wouldn't do it, but I agree with what Mark Dodd just said. I see Rowan going anywhere right now except AEW. I don't think he goes to AEW just because there's really nothing for him there until there's a storyline where either him and Brody Lee can reunite as a tag team, or him and Brody Lee can feud. With the Exalted One thing kind of being built right now, you don't bring Rowan in to help it because it doesn't need his help, and you don't bring him in to destroy it because it's not really built yet.
Thomas makes a good point. We're leaving out MLW, and we haven't talked about Major League Wrestling a whole lot. I've not watched it enough to give my opinion on it, but like Cole said, I agree with Mark. At this point, Rowan, I don't think, is a fit with AEW. I don't think he's a fit with NWA either. Anywhere else, I could see him being utilized to some degree. By the way, I'm going to caveat by us saying, if we think someone should go where, or we would be a good fit here or there. This is assuming that these companies would financially be in a place to sign them. So, I don't know if Impact is even signing anybody right now. This is all just hypothetical at this point. Before we get to the rest of the list, I want to read some comments real quick. Conrad says, WWE does wreck guys sometimes. That spider was the fakest thing. It was sad. It was awful. Dusty says, Rowan has an IQ of 143. I did not know that. Alan says, that's what I was thinking, taking the Dark Order down. Dusty says, I could see Rowan as the intelligent version of Abyss. That's an interesting observation. Let's see. Thomas says, I agree that EC3 will probably go back to Impact, but he could go to MLW and replace MJF in the Dynasty. That would not be a bad observation. Conrad says, if Rowan went to AEW, I would have him be the man to eventually bring the Dark Order down. Conrad says, those two big guys in a match and program together would be great. He also says, plus you add the known history between the two. Eugene says, Mox doesn't need a Psycho Sid behind his back. Yeah, I'm not saying he needs a bodyguard. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if Rowan came into AEW, I'm just trying to think of what would be potential fits for him. And to this point, I think the point we're trying to make is that there's not really a fit for him there, because Moxley fills that role, like we've already talked about, of being that guy that's a loner. He doesn't want anybody else. Rowan would kind of have that same mentality, and I don't think you really want that. I think someone said earlier he might be a good fit with Lance Archer and Jake Roberts. I don't think that's going to be a faction. I think that's just what it is. I think you've got Lance Archer, and Jake Roberts is kind of like his mentor.
And Jake Roberts may not be around very long.
Exactly.
Jake Roberts might be the thing that helps get Lance Archer going, because he might be a little lackluster on the mic.
And I've read that Jake Roberts is not a long-term on-screen talent, but AEW is going to keep him as in a behind the scenes role eventually once we're back to live events. We got people arguing over the belt. Yeah, we'll get to that later in the show, I promise. So stick around, hang out with us for a little longer. Let's just rapid fire the rest of these. Where am I at? So, yeah, like I said, just quick rapid fire. Sarah Logan.
It's got to be AEW. I don't know anywhere else that she could. AEW needs to sign her. That would be one that I said they need to take a chance on. Their women's division is the only thing, in my opinion, that's a little lackluster in name. And I think with her face, her knowledge, and her ability, I think AEW would be a good fit for her.
And like I said, guys, we're just assuming that these companies would be in a financial place to sign them. We might not see any signings for months. Who knows? Sarah Logan, just again without explanation. Gosh, I'd say Impact. Just
Impact is my second one for her, but AEW needs to sign her.
Let's see. Okay, Drake Maverick.
You heard my thoughts. I think he needs to team back up with EC3 and just go wherever EC3 goes as a manager role.
Okay.
Wherever that may be.
Yeah, my answer is still the same. If EC3 is going to Impact, I'd say Drake Maverick to Impact also. We'll do both of these, Hawkins and Ryder.
Oh, I don't think they stay together. I would think Hawkins ends up in NWA.
I agree with that.
And Ryder, this is a long shot. I think Zack Ryder needs to become a manager. Not that he's not a good wrestler. He's just really good on the mic, and I think he could get over some people that is more their time. But if I had to guess, I think Impact.
Zack Ryder's a tough one because he's such a name that he almost I'm using the word almost here. He could almost go anywhere he wants and probably have work or find a job. So for those of you that watch New Japan or are familiar enough with it, there's a wrestler named Juice Robinson who used to be in NXT. I forgot what his name used to be in NXT. But he's kind of like those two could kind of have they have the same personality, so you could almost pull off a tag team between those two. Now, I know Juice Robinson is currently tag teaming with, or at least he was, because they just recently won the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. Who do you win that with? David Finlay. And I don't know what the current situation is with that tag team, but Zack Ryder you could almost throw in with Juice Robinson. You'd have a tag team. And Zack Ryder would be somebody that if he went to New Japan, he would probably be a constant on their roster.
He does have a huge online presence, too.
I don't think that NWA is a large enough platform for him. Ring of Honor, I don't think is, even though, if you went to New Japan, again, there's that talent exchange they sometimes have. I think the most likely would be New Japan. I don't think AEW brings him in, even though he's buddies with Cody, but he could probably utilize that connection to get into New Japan. Okay. Two more real quick. Lio Rush.
Man, Lio Rush, I think ROH, he's a locker room problem. Nobody wants to work with him. He complains too much. He's not believable to beat a lot of people. Really talented, really young. But I maybe Impact, but I think more ROH.
I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes anywhere, if he goes anywhere, I'd be shocked if he still wrestles. He might be like we've said, a manager kind of role. But like Cole said, I agree. I think he's too much of a problem behind the scenes. He's been too much of a headache with other talent. If he does go anywhere as a wrestler, I agree. I think it's Ring of Honor. But
if Bobby Lashley can't work with you, there's a problem.
Agreed. And my inclination is that his in-ring career is over unless he does the indie stuff. But if he goes back to a somewhat major promotion, Ring of Honor, MLW, maybe. So we'll see. Last one, Eric Young.
So Eric Young the rumor is he wants to actually switch to a producer role at some point, and I think WWE would be interested in him at some point down the line in a producer role. But to finish out his wrestling career, man, probably NWA, just because there's a lot of guys there that he has history with.
Yep.
That he could kind of fit into some storylines to kind of end on a decent run, and it wouldn't hurt them if he won a title or something at his age, because he's at least good enough to.
Yeah, I agree. You said exactly what I was going to say. So if he sticks with in-ring stuff, I could see him going to NWA. But if he does transition to a producer role, I see him being with WWE eventually when they hire people back, or AEW potentially. I don't think he'll go back to Impact, just, I mean, for money reasons. Or well, maybe he does. I mean, that is where that's where he got a lot of his traction. That's where he got his footing.
A lot of the guys that he worked with are not there anymore. So
True.
That's why I'm kind of in between on that answer.
Like
James Storm and all of them are in.
No, I agree. I'm gonna bring up. I'm bringing this list back up because we had somebody. Eugene says, "How about the producers?" Tell you what, let's just go through some of those names real quick. I'm only going to go through the more well-known names, just because, I mean, not a lot of people know who Sarah Stock is or anything or someone like that. But
you missed out on Heath Slater.
Did we?
Yeah, you didn't.
Why isn't he on this list?
Heath Slater got released, and honestly, Heath is one of those names that I feel like is going to be wanted because he's really good on the mic, and he's funny, and he's not talented. I could see him going to a place like NWA, Major League Wrestling. I think a lot of these New Japan will probably be interested in him, just because of the draw aspect. But I would like him on Impact just to rekindle the whole Rhino storyline, because I liked the whole we got kids thing. But
I see Heath, and I apologize for leaving him out. I mean, he's on this list. I totally skipped over him. Heath Slater is somebody that I could very easily see. Maybe I don't know if Heath Slater is his legal name or not, but I could see him using. I mean, he's a recognized face, and I could see him going somewhere like an NWA or even in New Japan, but to ditch the whole "I've got kids" persona and come out with just like a more aggressive, people should take me seriously kind of thing. And I could see him totally reinventing himself like Drew McIntyre has, and in 3 or 4 years' time, because he's not bad in the ring. If you watch any of his matches, he's not great, but neither was Drew McIntyre. I mean, I don't think Drew McIntyre's great now. He's better than he was, but I could see, Heath Slater rehoning his craft, getting better in the ring, getting better on the mic, hitting the gym more, to where 4 or 5 years' time, we might see him as a.
You're also talking about a guy who every gimmick he's been given, he's found a way to make it work when it sucked. The one-man band, the 3-man band, the Nexus gimmick, what was the other 4-man faction he was in with Wade Barrett?
The Core?
The Core. There's just so many bad. And then he did the whole "I got kids" thing. Like, literally every gimmick he's been given has been absolutely trash. And he's been tag champion like 3 or 4 different occasions. They let him have 24/7 title, I think, once. And he was in prominent role on TV still in all of those gimmicks in the mid-card or tag title picture. So this is a guy who's really talented at getting crap over.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, he would be one of the very few on that list that I wouldn't be shocked if he gets re-signed by WWE when this is all over. Because he had a 10, 12-year stint with them doing crap gimmicks. Like I don't know. I think they really like him, and he could be one that goes to a producer role when his time is up as well.
Yeah, he was with WWE since 2006.
Faithful. I mean, so 14 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of the ones I could see him coming back.
And you got to think, anybody with WWE or anybody that's been with WWE for that amount of time, if they've been smart with their money, if they don't want to, they don't have to work ever again. I mean, you've got guys like
he could just start a podcast and probably make money.
There's who am I trying to think of? Tyler Breeze. So he's been with WWE for quite some time, and I want to give a shout out to my my buddies at Beltamania. You can check out their show on Tuesday nights at 7:15 Eastern, 6:15 Central Time on their Facebook and YouTube pages. Again, it's called Beltamania. It's just like it sounds. But I've made comments on their show before that Tyler Breeze is a guy that he's been with WWE for
decade,
10 years, at least 12 years, and someone commented on his Twitter. This has been a few weeks ago, but someone commented on his Twitter that how can you be happy with your position in WWE? And basically his reply was, well, I've got 3 houses, I've got a bunch of cars, I've got money in the bank, I've got my own wrestling school. And I agree with Tyler Breeze. I mean, put me on the low to mid card and have me make 6-7 figures for a decade or more. I'll take it. And I bet 95% of the people that watch or listen to this would take it as well over being a upper card guy and be the champion of like MLW or something like that and make, $10,000 a month or something like that. Give me the low card on WWE any day for a decade or more.
Not to mention, you got to understand that each wrestler is going to have a different set of life goals. Everyone's goal, obviously, in any promotion is I want to be the top champion. I want to have, Shane McMahon had talked about how he wanted to be a tag champion.
Agreed.
Like you have your wrestling goals, but your life goals have to trump those. And so his life goal was to live comfortably, I'm sure. And as you can see, he hasn't ever been really anything more than tag team champion. I think he was NXT champion once in the earlier part of NXT's kind of rise, but had some funny gimmicks with Fandango and all that. But the guy has been able to create a comfortable life and still do what he loves, and he's on TV still. I mean,
right.
Are you on TV? I mean, do you have 3 houses? Do you have a car? Do you have a wrestling school? Like, these are probably all dreams of his that he's getting to live out, and WWE's just paying him to live his dream out. And that's got to be cool. Not everybody's going to, just like when you go to the NFL or any sport, I'd rather make the team and get paid the bare minimum of what a athlete gets paid to sit on the bench than be sitting at home doing nothing. To be playing in some intramural league versus playing in the big league. So it's one of those things where you just got to understand their life goals too.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just, it's all about someone's priorities, what their goals are, kind of like you said. If someone has a goal of getting to WWE and being their WWE champion, which I agree from the standpoint, if you join a company, your goal is to ultimately hold their main title or become their main champion, or, having the company have enough faith in you to put that belt on you, put you in that spot. Or, if you're in a tag team, to win the tag team titles. But, again, if that's not your goal, then you probably should be doing something different. But at the same time, if WWE offers you a job and you work that job in the low to mid card for, 4 or 5 years, but you're making the money that you are you going to say, well, I'm going to leave here because I'm not going to resign because I want to be the guy. And maybe your goal is to go to Ring of Honor or Impact or whatever and become that guy, maybe to put more of a spotlight on you so you can go back to WWE and make that money. Maybe that makes sense. But to me, I'm all about, especially the way our society is today and just the uncertainty with so much going on. And I'll put it this way, knowing what I know, I would much more rather play it safe and just, be that low to mid card. If after 5 years they say we want to offer you a new contract and we'll give you a little bit of a raise. I'm going to re-sign that contract for another 3, 4, 5 years and stick with WWE and just be happy that I have a job, that I'm still doing what I love. Because you got to think, Tyler Breeze likes wrestling. He enjoys what he does, but he also enjoys his wrestling school.
And think about it, he's on NXT. So think about this. He's doing what he loves. He's enhancing the future of the business. Tyler Breeze is probably back there, maybe not right now with the coronavirus stuff that's going on, But Tyler Breeze is back there backstage enhancing talent, talking to them, giving them insight,
Right.
helping people grow. And this is what you need in the wrestling business. You need guys who are more concerned about keeping the future of the wrestling business alive versus just trying to prolong their career and pushing themselves. At the end of the day, it's about the team. And that's why I love Drake Maverick's video of him kind of crying, because it shows how passionate he was about his workplace environment. He doesn't say anything about Vince. He doesn't say anything about Triple H. He talks about all the talents and people that he's not going to get to say goodbye to, though, which tells me that he was connected. They worked along each other. They built each other up. They encouraged each other. And so there's a lot of people that I just think, you just got to understand where they're headed and stuff. There probably is a few comments we need to read here that go along with this story or what we're talking about, because I just saw a few that were interesting. Mark Dodd says, is there any way any company signs a group of these guys and does an invasion angle? I don't think so, just because means they'd have to...
It's been overdone.
Not just that. The only one I could kind of see doing it would be AEW, from the standpoint that they would just want to smack WWE in the face. But that would mean that all these guys have to come in and take the L, because AEW is not going to let these guys come in and put WWE over. So I don't know. It'd just be really hard to make that work without giving WWE TV time as well, because you would be referencing them and talking about them a lot, and I just wouldn't do it. Mark Sider says, Beltomania for life. We are in control. Call the group for... I'm not sure if I understand that one. There was another one I wanted to read. Anyone else think Aiden English could thrive as a manager somewhere like AEW, NWA, or ROH? The interesting thing about Aiden English is has he been cleared to wrestle again?
I don't know.
I know he had a pretty bad injury, but if he's cleared to wrestle, you think about it, very soon here, you could have Rusev, Lana, and Aiden English all free agents. And not that I want them to reunite Rusev Day, but it was really over. It was a tag team that got over very quick, and could easily go into a promotion like AEW that will have a 3-man tag belt, and it would be really easy to add one person to Rusev Day. Tag team, like it would be simplistic to do that, to where they could go in and reunite, and he could still kind of play more of the mouthpiece role of that group. But yeah, I like Aiden English from the standpoint that he can talk. I think he's a terrible wrestler in my opinion, but I think he's good on the mic, and he could definitely, I think he'd be more of a heel manager than a face manager. But I definitely think he could get somebody over. You just have to find the right guy.
Agreed. I want to address Eugene's comment real quick. He says, I guess he meant to say, when will I get that WCW belt? Send me a Grilling Broadway podcast shirt, size medium with it. So just to clarify, whoever the belt winners are, T-shirts do not come with the belt. So I'll talk more about that later in the show, but we do have shirts that are for sale. I'll bring those up real quick here. So our T-shirts come in black, white. We have a normal green, and we have a dark green that's not pictured in our T-shirts. The dark green is more of the color of the hoodie. And then, the T-shirts are $25. That includes shipping. And then we have hoodies as well. For those of you that live in the northern part of the country, you're welcome to purchase a hoodie as well, because, it's still cold outside, even though it's April. We have hoodies, and hoodies are in the same colors, black, white, the darker green, and then we do have a lighter green as well. The hoodies are going to be $50. Again, that includes shipping. There's no taxes on it. So $25 for a T-shirt, $50 for a hoodie. If you want to purchase one of those, let me know. But whoever wins our belt giveaways, kind of a spoiler, I did say giveaways, so stay tuned for that. But whoever does win the belt giveaways, you just get the belt. Their shirts are not with the... I apologize. Oh, my timer just went up. Trevor says, still cold in Chicago. Yeah, get you a hoodie, buddy. Let me know if you want one. All right. So, tell you what.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
I wanted to let you guys know that you can check out the Going Broadway podcast with new shows every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and any other platforms where you can access your podcasting. If you're watching us live right now, just to let you know, each show is archived, and you can go back and watch any one of them on Facebook or YouTube. Our links are here on our page. This is our YouTube link, goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube. Over here, if I can get, there we go, facebook.com/goingbroadwaypodcast, and then below Cole's picture, we're on Twitter at goingbrdwypod. We're also on Instagram now at goingbrdwypod as well. So check us out on all of our platforms, like our Facebook page. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Right now, our belt giveaway that we're doing is just for Facebook and Twitter, but we'll do some giveaways in the future for our YouTube and Instagram pages as well. Please also download our free app. It's called Yo Radio. It can also be downloaded through the App Store or Google Play. Yo Radio is the most advanced user-driven streaming radio service on the market today. Everything you would expect and more from the most full-featured platforms ever developed. You can listen to an endless genre of music podcasting, including our show via the Lineup channel, sports news and more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's always 100% free. Again, that's Yo Radio, available via the App Store, Google Play, or by visiting yoradio.com. We're also on our web host. You can check us out there, lineupmedia.fm. All right, so with the time that we have left, I want to talk about Tuesday night's episode of Dark Side of the Ring. So if you guys have been checking that out, Dark Side of the Ring is on its second season, and Tuesday night's episode was on Jimmy Snuka. If you've not watched season 1, please go back and watch that. There were 6 episodes. They had an episode on Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. The second was the Montreal Screwjob. The third was on Bruiser Brody. 4 was on the Von Erichs. Episode 5 was on Gino Hernandez. Episode 6 was the Fabulous Moolah. All of them are watched or are must watches in my opinion. So go check those out, and I'll get to some of these comments here in just a second. Season 2 has been great so far. The first 2 episodes were Benoit episodes, part 1 and 2. Third episode was New Jack. 4th episode was Brawl for All. And then the one this past Tuesday night was on Jimmy Snuka, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Looks like we still got people talking about our fantasy booking with people that were released. Let's see. Alan says, I'm getting one. If you're talking about a shirt, yeah, man, just hit me up and we'll make it happen. Real quick, though, if you do want to order a shirt, just a heads up with this coronavirus stuff, so the T-shirts are made to order, basically. So between getting them made and getting them shipped to you, it could very easily be 3 to 4 weeks. Just a heads up on that. Let's see. Conrad, I appreciate it. Yeah, check us out anytime, buddy. We're live every Monday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Matthew says, the Club, EC3, Rusev, and Zack Ryder will all probably end up in AEW. We'll see.
I just commented on it.
Okay. Yeah, Trevor says, hope they do a 3rd season. Yeah, I hope they do too. At some point, they're going to run out of topics to discuss. Matthew said, oh, you replied to Matthew. Maverick, Eric Young, Primo, and Epco, I could see an Impact. I don't see Epco and Primo and Impact. Maybe the other two. So, all right. So real quick, let's discuss last night's Dark Side of the Ring. So Jimmy Snuka was, in the early 80s, eventually what Hulk Hogan would become. I mean, he was their guy. He initially came in WWF at the time as a heel, but because he was so popular, the fans were super into his high flyer athletic style, and so the storyline was, and I don't think they covered this in last night's episode, but basically it was a storyline. So I think this was 82. So Buddy Rogers, who would become Snuka's manager, told Snuka that Captain Lou Albano, who was managing him at the time, he was basically cheating him financially, and then Snuka fired Albano, became a face, and then Buddy Rogers became his manager. So that's how that happened. So then fast forward a little bit, and then Cole, you can add anything if you want to at any point. They're on their way to a show in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They had a TV taping at the agricultural hall, which is where they were filming. And so this was May of 1983. Snuka called for an ambulance because he found his girlfriend at the time, Nancy Argentino. He said she had been injured. She died shortly after because of brain injuries or cranial injuries or something like that. So the coroner reported, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, reported that she died of traumatic brain injuries that was consistent with a moving head injury via a striking object. Or I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Consistent with a moving head striking a stationary object. The autopsy findings show she suffered more than 24 cuts and bruises, a possible sign of domestic abuse. Cuts and bruises were on her head, ear, chin, arms, hands, legs, and feet. So, anyway, fast forward a little bit. They suspected no foul play. Notified the district attorney, notified the family that we're dropping this case, but Nancy Argentino's family was not convinced, and so fast forward a little more to 2011, I think it was. There was a local story done in a local newspaper that essentially it reopened the case, and it was found that Jimmy Snuka gave conflicting information to officers. Gave conflicting information to doctors whenever Nancy was brought in. Basically, he told the doctors that they had gotten into a fight and she fell. Then he told police officers that she'd actually fallen on the ground and hit her head. As they were driving to Allentown, they stopped at a rest stop, or I think it's a rest stop is where where he claimed they were at the time. And then she fell, hit her head on the concrete, and then that's how she got her injury. So, with all of the conflicting information, there was never a resolution, because once they brought it to trial, they charged Snuka for murder. They deemed him unfit to stand trial because he had dementia, and Snuka pleaded not guilty initially, and then I believed they made the what's the word I'm looking for? So he initially pleaded not guilty, but then they made a plea for him not to be able to stand trial because of his dementia. They dismissed all the charges, but then Snuka passed away a week later because of his cancer. So a 45-minute episode in about 2 minutes. So Alan says, where can we watch this? So you can watch this on the Vice Network or Viceland Network. I'm not sure which it's called, but it's also on YouTube.
It's both. They shorten it to Vice for TV, but it's the Viceland Network, and you can watch it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, it's very easy. You can find links for it on YouTube. So it's a great watch. All of them are great watches. I encourage anybody to watch it. Thomas says, I remember Snuka in NWA back in the late 70s before he went to WWF and blew up. Yeah, he was very big in NWA. He was actually their Mid-Atlantic United States champion. What else? I think he was their tag champion as well. Let me check here. Yeah, he won their Mid-Atlantic United States title, which is actually, from a lineage standpoint, the current WWE United States title. He was World Tag Champion twice with Paul Orndorff and Ray Stevens. He was in Georgia Championship Wrestling. He was National Tag Champion with Terry Gordy. So, yeah, he had a number of different accolades prior to going to WWF. Let's see. Dusty says Vice used to be History Channel 2. I did not know that. So it was a good episode. I'd encourage anybody to watch it. But the thing I wanted to bring up, and this is something that Cole and I talked about yesterday, and we'll probably wrap up the show with this, but I wanted to get Cole's thoughts, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts that are still watching us. So Benoit has basically been erased from WWE, minus, he's still on the network. His matches are still on the network. But I think it's pretty apparent that Jimmy Snuka in some way, shape, or form contributed to Nancy Argentino's murder, or her death, I should say. If that's the case, and if you guys go back and watch this episode, you'll see what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of stuff that was in this episode that I didn't know about. And after watching it, I'm more so convinced that Sean says it was okay, better stories on the dark side. Yeah, I mean, this one, it wasn't as good, but it was still, in my opinion, good because they shared a lot of info that I didn't know about. But if you go back and watch this episode, in my opinion, it's more apparent that Jimmy Snuka had some contribution to her death. So if that's the case, Jimmy Snuka was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 1996, I believe.
Yeah, something like
If that's the case, should he be removed from the Hall of Fame? Thomas said they strongly hinted at a Vince cover-up with the police. Yeah, I didn't want to give away too much, because if you guys want to watch it, I don't want to give too many spoilers away. But if you guys go back and watch it, it's very much apparent, in my opinion, that he contributed to this. So if that's the case, do you get rid of Jimmy Snuka out of your Hall of Fame? In my opinion, if you're going to be consistent, if you're going to do the same thing you're doing with Chris Benoit, absolutely, 100% positively yes. Cole, your thoughts?
I'm responding to this.
That's fine. Dusty said the way he said, quote unquote, she looks ugly with how they arranged her during the funeral and didn't console her family. Yeah, again, guys, I don't want to give away too much. There are people on here that haven't watched it, and I totally understand that. I'm recommending people watch it if you haven't already. I don't want to give away too much. So
I had grown up. My dad, I started watching wrestling with my dad, and my dad used to tell me how trash Jimmy Snuka was when all this stuff went down, and I don't think I was at an age to comprehend the whole story. And now going back and watching it, what's crazy to me is when you watch this, you'll notice that there are things that this episode captures from people who were there around it, that were interviewed, that it seems like it had never been talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to ruin too much, but there was some facts that were brought up that Snuka made it sound like him and Nancy drove to that show taping alone, and it was just them two. He never mentioned anyone else being in the car.
Right.
But then there was somebody else in the car, and they don't recollect any of the story that was given to the cops. And then it kind of looks like they were embarrassed because it looks like they kind of threw Jimmy Snuka under the bus in a sense. I think when you look at it as a whole, it looks like a massive cover-up. One on the WWE standpoint, or at the time WWF, just because they couldn't afford to get hurt in the media. Even though they had nothing to do, they were literally paying Nancy to drive him show to show, knowing that he was doing cocaine, knowing that he was on drugs, knowing that he was a problem, knowing that no one else wanted to work with him. So there's just a lot that goes in that story. I messaged Alex yesterday after watching it, and I said, I asked that question, do you think he should be removed from the Hall of Fame? My answer would be yes, if you're going to remove Chris Benoit. Now, if you're going to continue with the idea that Chris Benoit could at some point be entered, then I would say no. Because if you're looking at the body of work, of what they did, then both of them deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. If you're looking at their wrestling career only, not taking their personal lives into account, if we were to only base everything based off talent and what they've done in the business, both of them would be in the Hall of Fame. But if we're going to allow that to play a role in who gets to be in the Hall of Fame, then to me, Jimmy Snuka should have been removed years ago. They let him come back on TV right before he died of cancer. I would have never have let him back on TV.
No, they did that to. I think they did that to help. So he wrote a book at the time. Was also around the time that this local article came out, and that's what sparked this whole reinvestigation. I think they let him back on TV to help promote the book in exchange for, whatever percent of royalties that he would make from the book. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just speculating, but it doesn't make sense for WWE to bring him back to promote a book if they're not getting something in return.
Not to mention, it just helps solidify that he's a good guy. It helps to keep their
100%.
investment of protecting him alive. But to go back to the topic, it irks me because I was a Chris Benoit fan. I'm not condoning anything that he did, but it irks me that guy will never be in the Hall of Fame, but Jimmy Snuka is. And if you look at everything, one, there are several. I don't know what. Oh, there we go. I might have bumped my wire.
No, you're good.
There are several instances that they bring up where the cops were involved between him and Nancy. The dude was literally married and had a whole nother family she didn't even know about. There's just so many aspects of the story that you need to go and watch, that even if you grew up watching Jimmy Snuka and you thought you understood this whole story when it first came out, there's a lot of details that I think even police and investigators missed. That the Dark Side of the Ring was able to interview some of these guys years later, and they kind of backtrack on what they initially might have told the cops or interviewers and all that stuff. And so it's a really good watch, but my answer would be he needs to be removed from the Hall of Fame. I definitely think he murdered her, or played a role in her murder. You know, one, he knew that there was something wrong. He went into the tapings anyways. He left her in the hotel to die, pretty much. So
Yeah.
regardless if he actually hit her or did anything to her is one thing, but it's still negligence on his part to not recognize that she was very bad off and not do anything about it.
Right. I'm just going to read some comments real quick, and then we'll probably wrap up the show with details about our belt giveaway. But yeah, if you haven't watched any of the Dark Side of the Ring episodes, check them out. They're a good watch. Yeah, that's really all there is to say. So let's see. I read Thomas's comment already. Sean says he should be removed. Thomas says, agree, if Benoit can't be in the Hall of Fame, then Snuka needs to be taken out if you're going to be consistent. Agreed. Eugene says, you can only do so many swan dives till you get CTE. I don't know if CTE really had much to do with this as much as drugs did.
They tried to pin that on his, in the court cases. I remember this when they re-brought this up. I was old enough to understand why he was being retried and stuff. And I remember they were trying hard to put CTE or head trauma, concussions as the factor.
Yeah.
But that means that you are now admitting that he did stuff.
Oh, 100%.
They were trying to say he couldn't stand trial because of concussions. But I'm saying you're now admitting that he had a lot of problems. So,
agreed. Matthew says, Snuka is already in and Vince did cover something up. Wouldn't removing him bring up some serious issues for Vince? Well, possibly. Alan says they have Dark Side of the Ring After Dark on Vice also. Yeah, I'm not really into the After Dark stuff. That's just me. Let's see. Dusty says they need to remove him as they did Benoit, or they need to put Benoit in the Hall of Fame because of the way that Vince had his hands in both cases, and the CTE being involved in both cases makes them both very similar. Sean says WWF big cover-ups. Eugene says, I don't know enough about the Snuka story, but it sounds like he should be removed. Vince even removed Hogan from the Hall of Fame and then brought him back. That's a great point. Yeah, Hogan was removed from the Hall of Fame after the racism stuff, and then they brought him back. Matthew says, I think he said this earlier, I feel like if Snuka gets removed, then it'll bring up big questions for Vince.
Yeah, but so I gotta make a comment about the Hogan thing. That bothers me that he was so quick to remove Hogan for now, I don't like to put things on a ranking scale, but for a comment versus somebody who was involved in somebody's death.
Yeah, agreed.
Or potentially. My thing is Vince doesn't know really what happened. He's protecting the image of his company, and in my opinion, it looks bad in so many ways that you have Jimmy Snuka still in the Hall of Fame when there was so much controversy around that topic, when you removed other people for things. If you haven't watched the Benoit story, go watch the Benoit story. The dude was dealing with a lot of things that should have been caught.
Agreed.
Way ahead of time. That could have probably avoided that. So to remove people when they had, maybe Snuka did have problems mentally. Maybe there was some things that needed to be addressed, but they knew that he was doing cocaine for sure. So it's one of those things where they're inconsistent on that for sure.
Yeah. I want to read a few more comments real quick. I'm going to announce further details about our belt giveaway here in about 5 minutes. So if you know someone that might be interested in watching, tell them to get back on the stream or to get on it. Check us out. I'm going to discuss that here in about, 5-10 minutes, just depending on how much longer this discussion goes. But share our page, have them get back on here if they left. If they weren't on here in the first place, tell them to get on because we got some big news here in a few minutes. Where did I leave off? Alan says I have to mute this. Not sure I have to watch the last episode. Yeah, I did my best to make sure to, at least on my end, not to give too many spoilers, because I know some people have not watched it and want to watch it. Thomas says, yeah, I think it may have been an accident, but he was definitely negligent and a contributing factor in her death. Yeah, I think that's across the board. I'd be surprised if anyone that knows enough about this, especially after watching the latest episode of Dark Side of the Ring, I'd be surprised if there are too many people that didn't think he at least contributed to her death. I mean, it's just, there's so many smoking guns in this.
All I'm going to say, go look at the autopsy report and then tell me if that's what you think.
Yeah, again, we'll leave it at that, but there's just there's just too much against Snuka to not think that he had a role in it. So, let's see. I want to give a chance for maybe a couple more people to jump on here if you guys are sharing the page. I'm going to look at something else real quick here. So basically, if you guys haven't heard, AEW Double or Nothing is going forward with their event, but it'll be an empty crowd and it'll be at an undisclosed venue. But I'm curious as to whether or not it's been taped already or if that one's going to be live. Because I noticed if they said on Dynamite last night, if they said anything about it being live, I missed it. But I was purposely trying to see if they would say, because they did a promo on it and they mentioned that they're still having it. Obviously, they didn't say anything about it being at MGM Grand or wherever because it's not going to be there anymore. But they didn't say anything about being live, which I found interesting. Unless they did, I didn't catch it. But the fact that I don't think that they said it was going to be live, I found interesting.
I think they might be waiting just because, from the standpoint that there are several states that are getting ready to address when they're going to reopen the states as far as economy. Like I know the state of Missouri is having that conversation today, going live today. Yeah. Illinois is probably not far off from doing the same. I don't know where Florida is, but they closed down pretty early too. So there's just a lot of different options and stuff. But I'm curious if they're waiting to see what states start to do as May approaches, because some of these states sound like they might be considering reopening up, back to certain degrees of allowing certain things to happen. So maybe they're waiting to see if they can go live, if they can have a full roster on board, or if they can do it, but they have to still stay small staffed, and they might want to go and pre-tape so they can have everybody featured on the card.
Yeah. One thing I'm really intrigued about with all of these WWE releases is that I wonder if it is strictly, and I'm kind of jumping topics here, but I wonder if it is strictly related to the fact that XFL filed for bankruptcy, so they're going to try to save money to pay off those debts that they have related to that, or if they know something behind the scenes that we don't know and that maybe we won't be having live events anytime soon.
I also read that the XFL thing was done to help WWE. So I read that Vince McMahon did it because he wanted to make sure his investments were protected with the things that were for sure working,
right?
Which is WWE. And so, because XFL actually had enough money to hold tight until like 2022, I think I read. So it didn't really make sense for them to file bankruptcy. But I think he did it so he could then take what he had and protect the things that are working. So that doesn't shock me at all. Guys, we didn't really recap anything today just because those shows were kind of...
You didn't. If you didn't watch them, you didn't really miss anything, at least on the AEW side. I watched AEW and not NXT.
Both shows had one, maybe two matches. Go watch them. They're good at best. all the matches pretty much needed a crowd, in my opinion, and they
Mhm.
just kind of fell flat. The only one of note that went a little long was the Moxley Hager match on AEW, and then Killer Cross made his kind of face appearance on NXT last night, but
Yeah.
most of it wasn't very, very good.
AEW did announce that next week on Dynamite they are concluding the quarterfinals of the AEW TNT title tournament. So it's going to be Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara, and Dustin Rhodes and Kip Sabian. So after next week, we'll know what the quarter or the semifinals looks like for that. So that'll be interesting to see there. All right. Well, for the guys that are still on the video with us, thanks for hanging out with us for the duration, however long that was. So the further details about our belt giveaway. So I've already announced that so I've said whenever we hit either 2,000 likes on Facebook or 1,000 followers on Twitter, whichever comes first, it's more than likely going to be the 2,000 likes on Facebook because we're only like 100 away, guys. So please share our page with your friends, share it with in the groups that you're in. Help us get to that 100, or help us get to that 2,000 again. We only need like 100 more. So, Dusty says what I'm waiting on in AEW is Orange Cassidy going full blown berserk mode. It will be amazing. So yeah, Alan, thanks for hanging out with us for the entire time. Appreciate it. So as far as the belt giveaway, like I've said before, we're giving away this belt. If I can put it up closer to the camera here. So again, this is a real belt, real plates. It's not a toy. So that's just one belt we're going to be giving away. We're also going to be giving away. Wish I had a drum roll. There we go. You missed the cue.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. We're also going to be giving away an NWA Domed Globe belt as well. I don't have any pictures of it. It's being made as we speak. So that one will be brand spanking new. So to update, we're going to be giving away 2 belts to 2 winners. It's not going to be one winner gets both. We're going to do a drawing for 2 winners.
No Becky 2 belts.
No Becky 2 belts. Sorry, guys. So we're going to be giving 2 away. It's going to be to not only the 2,000 people on Facebook, but once we hit 2,000 on Facebook, the people that are on Twitter, that have followed us on Twitter at that point, whether it's, I think we're like up to 400 something now. So if it's at like 430 something, those 430 something would be entered as well. So if you guys have liked our Facebook page and followed us on Twitter, you'll get 2 entries. So if that doesn't make sense, let me know. I hope I explained that pretty well. Yeah, so that's the update at this point. Stay tuned for more updates on that. I'll share pictures with you guys as soon as I have pictures of when it's close to being ready or done. I gotta set that down. If you guys have any questions about anything, contact me or Colt anytime. If you want to buy one of our shirts, let me know. Again, it's $25 for a t-shirt, and it's $50 for a hoodie. Let me know. We'll get you hooked up with one of those. And I know as soon as I switch back to this other camera, it's going to go to the countdown. I need to fix that. Oh, no, it's not. Sweet. Okay. Matthew says, are we going to have to cover shipping? No. Well, if you live within the lower 48 states, shipping will be included. Shipping will be free. If you win and you live internationally, so if you live in Mexico, Canada, I found this out earlier this week. We have listeners in you know what?
One today was from Ontario, I believe.
I want to pull this up real quick because I don't know how I came across this, but
Sean, is that you? Sean, are you in Ontario, I believe?
Just one second here. I randomly came across this on our page the other day, and I wish I could get back to it. I want to say it was under like our some kind of metrics, and I probably won't figure out how to get back to it. But we had a lot of listeners that were in England. We had listeners that were in Austria, Australia. Let's see. I probably won't find it. It figures when I want to come back to it, I'm not gonna remember how to do it.
Yeah, Sean's in Ontario.
Maybe Insights.
He also wants your Jericho shirt.
Go to Pro Wrestling Tees.
7 to 10 day shipping right now.
I think it's probably going to be more than that. Man, this is going to bug me. I wish I could somehow get back to where it actually gave me a breakdown of where our
Alan's trying to help you. He says admin tools.
That's where I'm at right now.
That's dope, Sean. Thanks for tuning in.
Anyway,
Ontario.
I'll find it at another time. But it was very interesting to see. Hold on just 1 second. It was just interesting to see how many international viewers and people that have liked our page where they're located. But yeah, to answer your question, if you live outside of the lower 48 states, so if you live in Alaska, Hawaii, or anywhere else in the country besides the United States, I'll have to let you know how much shipping would be. Alan, I appreciate it. Yeah, anytime you guys get a chance, share our show with any of the groups that you're in. Dusty says, shared with a wrestling game I play that 1,000 game users should see. Appreciate it. Alan says, I have a group with other 5,000 people that I made. Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Anytime you get a chance to share our page, just let them know that we're doing a giveaway right now. Regardless of where you guys live, you're entered to win if you like our page and follow us on Twitter. You don't have to do both, but if you do both, you get 2 entries. And like I said, if you are following us on Instagram and give us a subscribe on our YouTube page, we'll do giveaways for those in the future. It looks like we've got a few more people that are on here. So just to recap, we're giving away a big gold belt that I showed earlier. I'll just grab it real quick. Headphones are falling off. So we're giving away this one. Again, just to recap, this is not a toy. These are real plates. And we're also giving away an NWA domed globe. So we're giving away 2 belts to 2 people. So we're going to do 2 drawings. If you're one of our first 2,000 likes on Facebook, and if you're following our Twitter at the point that we hit 2,000 likes on Facebook, you're going to be entered to win. If you do both, you get 2 entries. So, guys, that's going to about do it for us. We'll be back here next Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Again, we appreciate you guys so much for checking us out, for hanging out with us. We enjoy the conversation. For Cole, for Alex, myself, we will see you guys on Monday.
And so, goodbye. And good night. Bang!
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.